Hi guys, and welcome back to another fly tying tutorial. What you see in the vise is a variation on the parachute Adams. I do hope you like it, so without further ado, let's get into it. The hook in the vise then is a Hanak H130 barbless hook. This one's at size 10 and it's on a fine wire finished in black nickel. Now the thread I'm going to be using is from Semperfli. This is the Nano silk. It's at 50D or 12/0 if you prefer, and as you can see it's white. So what I want to do initially is a little touch of super glue onto the shank. If you follow the channel, you know I prefer to use super glue rather than wax initially with nano silks. I just think it helps to bed the thread in a lot better. So I'm just going to get a few turns of the nano silk onto the shank and then come in and remove the waste. Now the first thing I'm going to do with this is add the post, and what I'm using is some poly yarn. This is in cream from Semperfli. I've cut off a small amount here. It just comes off the card this thickness, which is ideal, and what I want to do is just approximately 3 to 4 millimeters back from the eye of the hook is where I want my post to sit. So I'm going to lay it on, get a couple of turns like so. Just make sure that's sitting right on top of the shank. Now before I do anything else, I'm just going to add a little bit of wax to my thread. The next thing I want to do is cut the tail end off the poly yarn, and what I want to do is cut it at an angle. This will help with the body taper, and I'm just going to tidy that up. So all the way down to the end of that, and then I can come all the way back up. Now I find getting the post prepared is really important. So first thing I'm going to do is pull it back, and I'm going to build a small mound just in behind the post. And what this does is it will just stand my post up on the shank like so. Now the next thing, a little bit more wax, is to create a landing stage for where my hackle's going to go. So I'm going to get my thread and I'm going to work up this post. Now it can be a little bit fiddly this. If you've got a gallows tool, it's a good time to use that. I have got a gallows tool, but I just find it gets in my way more than it helps me. It's a hindrance, I find, but you might find it's just much easier to do. I've just learned to do without, but don't let that put you off. If you feel that it will help, then that's the way to go. Okay, so at this point I'm going to tie in my hackle, and what I'm doing is I'm taking a feather from this cock cape. Now I never measure out my hackles with a hackle gauge. I just have a look and see where I want the feather to go. Now what you've got to remember with feathers, at the bottom end here it's much thicker and it'll be much more difficult to wind around your post. So I always come up just where I want the hackle there, and I'm going to just skin with my nail a bit of that away. Now I'll just take that with the snips. Now if I was a mountain, if I was tying this as a fly tying exercise, I would strip out one side of the feather, but as I'm tying this as a fishing fly, I'm going to keep both sides of the hackle in. I think you get much better buoyancy than just the one hackle. Might not look as pretty, but it certainly floats much more effectively. So what I'm doing is that bit of stem I'm catching in on my side, and I'm going to get one wrap around the bottom of the stem there. Then I'm going to come around the back of the post, and I'm going to catch that all the way up. Now I've not run that thread all the way up to where the hackle starts. I've left approximately a millimetre. Now before I do anything else, I'll just tidy up this little bit of the stem, and I'm fairly content with that. So that's my post and my hackle ready, and that is the most difficult part of this fly really. Now before I go on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my super glue brush and just ever so gently add some super glue to the post. Now by the time I've finished the rest of this fly, that'll have dried. What it does is it firms it all up and makes it much easier for turning your hackle for the fly. The next thing then is to add in some tailing. Now I'm going to be using some Coq De Leon. This one's from Troutline. It's the Rajon. I can't do the Spanish accent, but it's a lovely speckled feather. I'll just see if I can show you this to camera. It's a nice speckled feather, and I want to take approximately ½ centimetre worth of the fibres. Simply pull them out at a 90-degree angle from the stem and rip away. And what I do is I dress it up to the hook shank, and once I've got the length of the hook shank, I transfer it to my left hand, and then I want that to be where my tailing feather fits. Now once I've got a few wraps, I can grab the tailing fibres and just pull them to where I'm happy they should be sitting. And I'm fairly happy with that. So I'm coming with my snips now and simply remove that excess, like so. Okay, that's looking a little complicated, but don't worry, we will get there in the end. So, for the rib of this fly, I'm going to be using a single strand of moose mane, and this is the difference between well, this fly and any other sort of variation you might have seen in the past. Now, the reason I'm using moose mane is it's a fairly robust material, and not only that, I get a really good change in colour. So, you might have seen a fly that I've done on the channel called the Jingle Hammer, which used striped peacock herring. Now the moose mane, you might be able to see there's quite a nice colour change in it. So I want to capture the colour change within the rib of the fly. So I'm just going to take the thinnest end off, and I'm going to trap in at the tip there, very gently. I don't want the nano silk cutting through my moose mane, so just nice and gentle, and we've got a rib in place. Next then, I'm going to be using some trout stalkers dubbing, and this is just a natural possum, no dye, no colour. I've already got a little bit out of the packet here, and what I want to do is simply dub that on, and possum dubs onto thread, no bother at all. It's really pleasant stuff to use when you're creating bodies. No need for a dubbing loop or anything like that, it just dubs onto the thread beautifully. Okay, so I'll just put that aside in case I need some more, and I want to come all the way up the fly and make sure you're covering all that waste. Now you see I've still got plenty of dubbing on there, and that's no accident. Just try not catching any of your poly yarn. I'm going to come back down because I want to get that sort of cigar shape to my body. Now that's all fine and well. Now as I said, the moose mane is robust, but I'm going to help myself out. Just going to attach the end to my hackle pliers by adding a little bit of super glue to the moose mane. Now this is not necessary, but it does mean the fly will last a little bit longer. You know, once you start catching a few fish, the last thing you want is your fly that you've just got all that confidence in because it's taken you a couple of fish disintegrating on you. So a little bit of super glue, and then I'm going to use my hackle pliers just to bring that over the body. Just pull your wing out the way if it seems to be being a bit obtrusive. I'm just taking my time, and I really want this to show the difference in this rib. It makes a big difference. If you've ever looked at any of the aquatic insects in the water, you'll see they have this sort of segmented look to the bodies, and this gives a real impression of that look. So I've caught that in. I'm now going to come over to the front of the fly, catching a bit more. Then I can come in with the tips of my scissors, nearly take my nano silk out, but I managed to get away with that, and there we go. So that's looking pretty decent so far. A little bit more possums required. I thought I had some out of the packet. It's obviously blown away onto the floor. And then I'm going to catch that in. Again, a little bit of dubbing. Dead simple. Onto the hook. Now, I'm going to start at the front, or the eye if you like. And I'm going to come all the way back. In behind the post. And I just feel like I need a little bit more, not much, to just exaggerate that thorax area. Don't want too much, because I don't want it to infringe onto my post too much, where I'm going to wind my hackle. So, sorry, I should have just explained that a bit better. The very last turn, I brought it up round the back of the post, and I'm going to rest it on the right hand side of the post. Next thing I want to do then is separate the poly yarn from my hackle, and I'm just going to bend it over now. And what I can do is bring that around. Getting this started is always the hardest part. So if you've stripped down one side of your feather, this is a lot easier, but when you're using two, it can be a little bit of a pain to get it started. So I'm just supporting the post by keeping a hold of it, but once I've got it going, it just goes no bother. Because I used a touch of super glue on the post, it just sits pretty nice for you. So all the way down. Now some people, if they're mass producing this kind of fly, they would count the turns to get them just right. I just go down till I feel like I've packed in as much as I possibly can. Because at the end of the day, it's these feathers here that are going to be supporting your fly. People think that the more poly yarn you have on the post, the better supported the fly is, but that's not the case. The poly yarn's simply there to support this hackle. This is what keeps your fly afloat. So I've trapped that in, and what I'm going to do now is hand finish onto the post. Now I put 2 or 3 turns into the loop. Try not to trap any of your feather fibres. Tighten it all up to the post. Now at this point I'm just going to tilt my vise slightly. Apologies if the fly's gone out of focus a little bit. Then I can come in, take away my thread, take away my tail end. Now, just to finish off, oops, dropped my dubbing needle there, sorry. I'm going to just get a little bit of super glue onto the dubbing needle, and where I finished my post, sorry, where I finished my thread off, I'm going to touch that in, and that just keeps it all nice and secure. So obviously a post would be great for view, but The taller your post, the less likely the fly is to sit properly on the water. I like to have my posts no bigger than a centimetre, and even that's probably just about right. There we go. And if I can just show you the footprint, you can see there's no sort of big head on it. It's just a straight body with that lovely ribbon, and the job's a good one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.